I want to start out with a just overview of all of the moons for the outer planets. And there are a whole bunch of them. So these are, I believe, the numbers in your textbook. Jupiter has 79 moons, Saturn 82, Uranus 27, and Neptune 14. And most of these are very small moons. A lot of them are captured asteroids or captured Kuiper Belt objects. We talked about that long ago when we talked about the origins of Earth's moon, that those are possible origins for moons. And because they are captured asteroids, a lot of them are not particularly interesting. So we're going to focus our attention on only these 9 most interesting moons, according to me. So those will be the Galilean moons of Jupiter. For Saturn, we'll talk about Titan, and we'll talk about Enceladus. Uranus, we'll talk about Titania and Oberon, and then Neptune, we'll talk about Triton. So starting out with the sizes of all of the moons that we're going to consider interesting here. The largest is Ganymede. This is one of Jupiter's Galilean moons. Titan is just a little smaller than Ganymede. That's Saturn's largest moon. For comparison, here's the size of planet Mercury. Callisto is a little bit smaller than Mercury, but very similar. Io is another Galilean moon, a bit smaller than Callisto, and very similar in size to Earth's moon. Europa, another Galilean moon, a little bit smaller than our moon. And then Triton is Neptune's moon. And then here's Pluto for comparison again. And then finally, here's Titania and Oberon, just to round out our 9 interesting moons that we'll consider in comparison to Earth's moon and Mercury. So I hope this makes it clear, like, we consider Mercury to be a planet, of course, because it orbits the sun, but these Galilean moons, sorry, not the Galilean moons, just some of these large moons in the outer solar system are really similar to planets in terms of size. So I think they have every right to be considered as worlds of their own. The 9th moon that is not yet on this chart, here's Enceladus. So this is the smallest moon that we'll consider an interesting moon, and you'll see why later on. All right, any initial questions about the moons we're going to highlight? Okay, let's start with the least interesting ones, but these moons of Uranus will help us build kind of an intuition for what the outer moons in general are like. Uranus has 6 large moons. All of them are composed primarily of rock and ice. All of them have some resurfacing, meaning that they're not completely covered with craters because those craters have been erased. So in the absence of, plate tectonics or of volcanism involving lava, there has to be some other mechanism responsible for resurfacing moons. So we'll talk about these as they pop up for each moon. Here's Titania. So it might be actually Titania. I actually don't know. The density is about 1.71 grams per centimeter cubed. So it's a rocky and icy body. Like many moons of the outer solar system, it does not have an atmosphere, owing mostly to its small mass, and also it's very cold. And when we look at Titania's surface, we see that it has scarps. These features are very similar to what we've seen on Mercury. So just a recall question from back in the class, where did Mercury's scarps come from? So hopefully you have reviewed some of these surface features because they were on our quiz. But in case you did not remember, the scarps on Mercury came from the shrinking of the planet. All these other features are real. So the flow of ancient liquid water, these carved channels on Mars, the rills on the moon were collapsed underground lava tunnels. Venus has all kinds of surface features caused by magma raising and lowering. Some of those were the concentric cracks that we call coronae, for example. But for Mercury, the rills came from the planet shrinking. On Titania, they're different. On Titania, they came from the planet expanding. So they're more similar to the valleys like Valles Marineris on Mars that were created from expansion. All right. So that's Titania. Oberon is fairly similar in terms of its composition and its density. It's Uranus's second largest moon, and it also does not have an atmosphere.